Alright folks, we've got another video coming your way on Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires, and to be honest, I've spent a fair amount of time playing Warriors of Chaos and got really bored. I could not find really anything else to do a video on. I didn't find anything interesting. So I went back to my tried and true, the Skaven, and this is a campaign of Clan Eshin, and as you can see, we've conquered a fair amount of territory. It is turn 83, and I think I've got this campaign in a decent place where I can make a video about some of the things that you should be looking at for most of your Skaven factions, but specifically for Clan Eshin on how to turn this into an absolute steamroll campaign. So the first thing that you want to look at is Undercities when it comes to Clan Eshin. And the thing about Clan Eshin is you don't get the normal right that you get with the other Skaven factions that gives you a free Warlock Engineer, regardless of your capacity to set up those vital Undercities. So you're basically locked into having one Warlock Engineer for the first 20 or 30 turns, really. And even now, if I wanted to recruit one, Warlock Engineers, I have 6 capacity, and again, turn 83. Now, I haven't prioritized them super heavily, but I was trying to get some more Warlock Engineers. So you start around this region here, and you start with a Warlock Engineer. And usually what a lot of people focus on is trying to get a good trait at the beginning of the campaign. It is my contention that you actually want to get a trash trait on your Warlock Engineer at the beginning of the campaign. The reason why you do that is you focus on movement and, well, actually, we'll just go to one really quick. On the onset, your Warlock Engineer, you want to focus on mobility, and this right here, the Specialist, that gives you the action cost minus 40. So if you start at this position and you get a trash trait, it's going to be different than if you got a good trait. If you got a good trait, you're going to keep him in Snikch's army, and you're going to march Snikch all the way up through here, taking out these cities with the objective of putting an Undercity right here, and that Undercity looks like this. For the purposes of expanding to this position, that one, it touches here and here. You can get all that expansion off of that one Undercity. If you've got a trash trait, and you can afford to disband that trait, and a good trait, for instance, would be like Discipline. In this campaign, I got Discipline, so I started out with a good trait. If you get a trash one, then you have the ability to attach him to Snikch for the first couple battles, so you can get those skill points that you wanted, but then you can take him over and send him right to that sea lane. And what that does, if we come all the way over to the other end of the sea lane, is it pops you out here. You then sail this guy up to the ancient city of Quintex. You can see in this point in the campaign, Marathi's been eliminated, and you set up the same thing. This one allows you to expand here, 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 here. This Plain of Dogs. These ones over here are also touching the ancient city of Quintex, so you can get the Moon Shard. You can also get Forest of Arnheim and Bleakhold Fortress. So you've got a large capacity for expansion there. Again, if you've got a trash trait, then you take this Warlock Engineer, you sail him down to this position. By the time he comes out to the other side, you have the ability to set up a city in somewhere in Nagaron. I chose to put it right here. And again, it looks like that. That gives you the ability to expand all this and around to these positions. After you set up that Undercity, you take him back, you put him in that sea lane, you bring him down to this position right here, the Monument of Izatal, and you get all of this expansion capacity. You're probably already working in this area to get to Skrull to save him from getting eliminated. But after you've set up those Undercities, you can now disband this one and recruit a Warlock Engineer with potentially a better trait on the other side of the map or anywhere else in the map. And hopefully by that time, you've established some capacity for that character. And then once you've got that expansion of the Undercity set up, this is what you want to do with it. You can see here we have the food building that is producing 3 food per turn. We have this building, which is producing 100 income per turn and 2 food per turn. And then we're hiding it with this building and this building. So this is taking a minus 200. So this whole thing is producing us a total of 5 food per turn at the cost of a total minus 100 from our income. And as you can see, eventually that really doesn't matter. And most of the campaign with Snikch, you can get to a positive income pretty quickly with him and stay there for the rest of the campaign. The second thing you want to focus on for Snikch's campaign is food production, because you're always going to be wanting to expand at the maximum tier that you can whenever possible, particularly on those big settlements, the province capitals. You do the food production by taking advantage of as many settlements as you can using this right. If you look at all of my settlements, just randomly selecting settlements, you can see that they've got that on there. You pick 1 or 2 provinces that you want to upgrade quickly. You use expansionist planning, gives you growth and 10% building cost reduction. The rest of them, food production. You can see in the late campaign that produces you a lot of food, but in the early campaign, you're pretty starved for food. So what I would suggest concentrating on is not only keeping your army intact and trying to take over territory, but capture all 3 of these gate settlements if possible. You may have a situation where these guys come down and get one, and if so, then you just have the ability to expand that undercity into that gate. But if you've got all 3 of these, then that's 6 food that you're getting per turn, and there's no income, there's no chance that it can go for a revolt. So you can basically use those as food farms. You always have to balance food production and money. And one of the best ways for Snikch to make money is my third tip for you when it comes to Snikch's campaign, and that is to let the revolts in Cathay happen. Periodically throughout the campaign, you'll have revolts as your control reaches minus 100, and there is a chance at all of these settlements throughout Cathay that instead of a normal rebel army spawning, you will get the spawning of a caravan. And every time you eliminate that caravan, you get above and beyond the amount of money that you would normally get from just a standard battle. We're talking 2, sometimes 3 or 4 times, depending on where that revolt manifested itself. I've gone through several campaigns, and as far as alliances are concerned, there's a few things that I think that you ought to do. Besides your incidental temporary alliances, I feel like you ought to go with at least a defensive, if not a military alliance with the Puppets of Misrule up here, and of course you're going to get any of the vassals that they have along with it. You should also, when you make your way over to Lustria to save Skrulk, I feel like the best people to make friends with are these Dark Elves here. They may hate you at the beginning. In fact, I was at war with them to start out with, and then they basically came around after I started smacking on all the lizard men up through here. And you may have to spend some time being friendly with Luther Harkon here. I'm about to declare war on him in a little bit after I take out Bordelot. Of course, the clan contracts with Clan Eshin give you access to meeting all of the other Skaven factions, at least the main 4 other factions. That is Clan Moors, Clan Molder, Clan Scryer, and Clan Pestilence, so that you have the ability to put eyes on them and thus initiate diplomacy. Thus far, if we look at what I've done here, I think I'm military alliance with both Clan Moors and Clan Scryer. I have a non-aggression pact with Throt here, and I have already confederated Tretch. Now I plan to do a dedicated series of videos on army compositions for the Skaven, some of them faction specific, but I think that the army that you should really gravitate towards most of the time when it comes to Clan Eshin, let's see what these guys are. Not that one, this is a weapons team army. This would be good for all the rest of the Skaven. Something like this, heavy on the gutter runners. A lot of times I'll go with all gutter runners like this. Sometimes I'll have a stationary position variation where I've got siege attackers in it like this, where we've got a few in the back and then some ones that run around with some frontline troops to kind of keep the artillery safe. That's the kind of variation that I would go with, because if you look at what it takes to produce those units as Clan Eshin, you only need this building to produce that, the main troop, which is the gutter runner that fires in all directions. And the same building gives you the stationary ones that use slings. And then as far as producing any sorcerers that you want, you get them from the level 3. So all of the troops that you want to recruit for those main armies can be achieved at tier 3 with Clan Eshin. Anyway, that's all for this one, guys. I hope that this discussion was good for you, helpful, and if so, then sound off in the comment section down below. I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts, and maybe you can yell at me for my army compositions.